tried to create this value behind this mining thing, and it doesn't exist. See, what I think the thing that's not being explained to the whole world, to crypto, to non-crypto, to coiners, no coiners, is what inflation is. Inflation is coins or dollars or whatever you want to call it coming to the market, and how that is distributed is what inflation is, and how that inflation is calculated is the difference between Bitcoin and Hex. Bitcoin's inflation comes in at a certain percentage rate with a max supply of 21 million.
In 120 years from now.
Yes, to equal the value of the miners using their energy and their hash rate and all that stuff to create a worthless, meaningless program. So it's still doing nothing. It's doing a whole bunch. They're basically going 100 miles an hour going nowhere is what's happening. That's what a miner does. It goes 100 miles an hour and it goes nowhere. It's just spinning its wheels. It does absolutely nothing. It creates no value. It's the ruse of value. So the inflation of Bitcoin, in order to make it come onto the market and make it act like it means something, just like fractional reserve banking acts like it means something to bring the dollars into existence, well, that's how Bitcoin is brought into existence. Hex has a completely different system. Proof of stake and staking is how the inflation comes into existence. At 3.69% every single year, we're going to get more Hex to the staker class. Based on how many stakers are there, that 3.69 inflation is going to go to the staker class. Now, here's the beauty of that. There is no miner to pay, meaning they're not going to dump the Hex onto the market to pay the bills, that there's not something worthless going on. There's something actually valuable going on when Hex comes into existence. When Hex inflates, it's being staked for an average of 7 years plus. So that brings value to the product.
The more deferred inflation.
It's deferred inflation. It's the most amazing. I think that next to shares and share rate, the deferment of the inflation of Hex is probably the second most important thing that we should be understanding and talking about. And we don't talk about it enough, and it's very confusing because I don't think that a lot of people understand what inflation really is. Inflation is money being created out of thin air, and it all gets created out of thin air, whether it's your fucking dollar or your yen or your Bitcoin or your Hex. It all is created the same way, out of thin air, into something that supposedly has value. And whether it's fractional reserve banking or Bitcoin miners or Hex stakers, you just have to see the value in all those things. And where is the real value? Hex staking brings you more value to your Hex than any other inflation tool. Period. End of story. That means it's more valuable than all of those things. And in the future, it's going to be even more valuable. So you better get your heads out of your ass and realize that, people, because inflation of all of your money, whether it's Bitcoin, dollars, or Hex, is what's important. How is that inflation being calculated? And how are you positioned in it? That's what's important.